Hi, everybody.
Yeah. You've had a you've had a couple days to get warmed up.
Yes, I have. Yes, I
Yeah,
have. It's
yeah.
wonderful to see so many old friends. And to any of my friends in France that are watching online, bonjour, mes amis.
All right. All right.
So it's wonderful to be here. May I do everything in my life with the enthusiasm with which Margaret Owen sings.
That's it.
She says, me too, yeah.
All right. Ready, set, go, right?
Yes, yes.
So you know, we have these themes
Yes.
every week. And
I
you wrote some of those last year, right?
Yeah, and I coordinated the theme process last year, not
Last
for
year,
this
not this year.
Right.
Well, so
And
finally,
I wrote a couple for this year.
finally, like the herding cats that we are, we decided this year that
Time to jump in.
we'll jump in.
Yeah.
So the first one was in the beginning. And I thought, well, in the beginning, I don't like the titles ever. So I always change them. So what happens at the beginning? It's ready, set, go. And you know, on your mark, get set, go. So here we are. Let's get ready. Let's get set, go. We'll just see what happens.
Okay.
I got some quotes here from Ernie,
Good.
my dear friend.
I like Ernie.
My Holmes boy.
Yeah.
My Holmes boy. Okay, so what's he got? First off, the first thing that we're talking about is God itself. So Dominic, roll it. All right. The infinite must be one, for there could not be two infinite beings, but this one must be changeless, for being one and only, it could not change into anything but itself.
Christ.
That was one of the things, that was one of the changes. That was like a big one.
Yeah. I think this is a really good example of the gymnastics we have to go through mentally to understand the simplicity of oneness.
Right? Yeah.
Because we live in two-ness. We live in duality, right? We have our sensory experience of things out there, and we see ourselves as things in here. We think of our mind as separate from our body. We're conditioned in a lot of ways to see ourselves as individuals in amongst a bunch of other individuals, when the reality is, if we could perceive it as such, it's all one thing.
Right.
But we don't perceive it that way, so we have to figure out a way to understand it. And the reality is that the nature of God is not understandable. And accepting that is a huge step in moving from being a child of God to an adult of God.
Well
in
said.
my opinion.
I hear you. And coming up with, great ideas. Where they come from, who knows? When they come down, I get this, and I came up with one called How to Know God. And since I've been practicing that and understanding that for the classes coming up, I've come to understand I don't.
No.
The more I try, the harder it is. But what has come to me is there's this feeling tone. And when we get into this idea of the infinite and the one and just feel into it, rather than try to think into it, we get it. You know, those of you who've held your grandbabies in your arms of late, or look at children, or experience nature, you get that feeling that pulls you into it, and in that feeling, you feel the sensation of the one. So
It's experience.
Right.
You know, I think it's helpful to think of God as a verb.
Right, as an action.
As in, you know, because creativity, it's creation. It's always in motion. It never stops. Evolution is its MO, if you will. It's modus operandi for those that watch CSI. And you know, evolution is the way things start from something very simple like hydrogen and heat. And from that, you can make a universe. And you add time, and time is how evolution unfolds. And from hydrogen and heat, we have all of this diversity.
Right.
So, and our lives, our being, we are, you know, human life has evolved from very simple single-celled organisms, which are not that simple.
Not at all.
To us, which we are not just a bunch of organisms, we are a community of organisms. You know, about 30% of your body weight is not you. It's other kinds of beings and creatures that cooperate to make you a community.
I have been reading this book. I'm in a men's group, and once a month we get together. And last year at our meeting, we decided we would read a book for the year. And one of the gentlemen suggested a book called "The Seven Mysteries of Life" by a guy named Guy Murchie. What a great idea! Except the book's 800 pages long. But it's so
About
fascinating.
120 pages of mystery.
Yes, exactly. And that also breaks down to about 120 pages a month.
Yeah.
But it takes about a day to read one page because it's so dense. And one of the things it talks about is what you just mentioned, how, there are so many different organisms that are on our bodies. I mean, if you just think about it, if you had the microscopic lens and could see what's happening in just an inch of your skin, you'd be like totally freaked out. You'd be with Perel all the time going, there's all kinds of stuff on me, because there is. And the thing that was clear from this is, keep it nice, keep going. But the thing that's so interesting about this is that all of it's moving, that life is constantly moving, constantly in motion. And so this infinite thing that is the one that can't change into anything but itself is constantly moving, constantly coming into form, over and over again. And they all seem so much the same. Simple things. One of the things that I saw in this, read in this, is that the hemoglobin in our bodies and the chlorophyll in plants have basically the same molecular structure, but there's two atoms that are different. There's iron in the hemoglobin and something in the chlorophyll. If you pulled those out and switched them, you could turn them both into the other form. This is how interchangeable life is, and how it just proceeds, because it's all coming from the thing itself.
All coming from one thing.
Yeah.
Want to do another quote?
Let's do another. Dominic. Okay, you read this time.
Since God is pure intelligence and endless being, he is always creating. It is her nature to create, but being all, God must create within God. Now, that's not the way Ernest wrote it. The
no, it
her
is not.
was added later, because being a person of his time, Ernest followed the grammar rules of the early 20th century. But even using any gender identity is probably a limitation on the understanding of spirit as we know it. When I when I was a fairly young minister, my very, very Catholic aunt asked me, about this science of mind thing, and she's, "Are you atheists?" And I said no, but from her point of view, we are, or I would be an atheist. I can't speak for you. I would be an atheist because I don't believe in a God who is a he with a personality who is micromanaging the universe.
That's really tiring.
Which she does believe in. She believes that, she has, God
there's a
is,
clockmaker, right?
that if a leaf falls off a tree, God decided to have that leaf fall off that tree at that moment. And fine. And my response to her today might be, yes, that may be, God is that and more. And how much more? Well, beyond what we can conceive. It's, it's the transcendent.
Right.
So always creating, again, that idea of verb, that idea of motion, that idea of continuous unfolding, of revealing greater and greater complexity and greater possibility through the complexity. God must act within God because there's nothing else. You can't have an infinite and something.
And something else, right.
There can only be one infinite.
Thank goodness.
So if you have something outside the infinite isn't infinite. What's that mean in our everyday lives? It means we're all part of that unfolding, creating mystery that is God. So I can never be separate from God. It's impossible. And I think that can be very empowering.
And if that continues to be the case, and I'm comfortable with that being the case, then this intelligence within that infinity has all knowledge within it.
Yeah.
And that is the possibility for anything that we want to have unfolding in our lives. Whatever we're experiencing will, from the previous slide, will change, because the changeless is constantly changing. And if it's infinite, pure intelligence, that means that all that there is that needs to be known is contained within this infinite. So everything that we would desire in our lives is moving forward. And the other part about that comes to me is that whatever is experienced right now that seems like a mistake is likely not a mistake. It's a perception issue, not a mistake issue. And if we can see that and trust in this idea that it's always creating from a pure intelligence, we can know that whatever is occurring right now is something that is just has come to pass. Not this too shall pass, this has come to pass.
Yeah, I think if you think of possibility as actualized and unactualized, or as potential and actualized, that there's universal potential, and a subset of that is actually actualized as our own experience, as the universe as we understand it, as the physical reality and our mental realities. And what we do, our role is to actualize potential into our experience. And sometimes we're doing stuff that's, over and over, but sometimes we're actualizing new stuff. And so I like to think of myself as a vehicle for the actualization of potential into form, into experience. And I do that by using my mind in creative ways. And I do it whether I intend to do it or not, and I do it wisely or unwisely. I do it in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. Just like the same electricity that flows into the building can be used to run the lights, or you could put an electric chair in here and use that same energy to, fry somebody's ass. It's the same power, right?
He did.
The electric. This
So,
is
like I
important.
said, there's a lot of little bugs crawling all over your body. What do you want, electrocution or Prel to get rid of the bugs on your body?
And the key thing is the electricity doesn't know what it's becoming. And it doesn't resist one more than the other. It will become whatever the end device at the end of the line says it becomes. So we're like the end device. We're like the light fixture. We're like the television. That we actualize this energy and potential into our own experience. And the energy itself is neutral as to what happens to it. So the intelligence to bring it into form, into experience, is within us as individualized expressions of the one.
Something's coming to me as you're talking about that.
I hope so, because we got 20 more minutes.
Really? Pure intelligence is working. Well, I'm thinking about the transformer outside and how the power gets stepped down. And so the power keeps getting stepped down, and that becomes the individualization, right? But if we go back the other way to the transformer, I got to race consciousness, to the ideas that we all share in common that move us in a direction that feels unconscious, but is really a conscious activity from us all cooperating in a larger power force that's moving, that's still part of that same creative energy.
Yeah, race consciousness, if you're not familiar with the term, was Holmes's idea for all the thoughts that have been thought. Now, there's lots of thoughts that haven't been thought.
And
when they get thought, they become part of race consciousness.
But not just the thoughts that have been thoughts, but the thoughts that have been thought and agreed upon that Dom Luis would call domestication.
And it's easier for us to think thoughts that have already been thought, even not by us. It's easier for us to be repetitive than it is to be new. So that's why we tend to be, when we don't pay attention, we don't consciously direct our thinking, we tend to be repetitive.
That's why there's a new Rambo movie out. Because they just cannot be creative. They must be repetitive.
Well, Rambo is a mystery, so...
Totally. Save us, Dominic. Give us another one. Okay.
No, he just...
All right.
Just tease them up. I hit them out.
Boom. Things may come and things may go, but creation goes on forever. This is indeed a wonderful concept, for it means that there will always be a manifestation of divine ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a flow. It's not, we think of often of evolutionary process as a series of snapshots. You have the thing you've seen where the thing crawls out of the water and there's increasingly complex creatures up to us. There's more to come, by the way, hopefully. And but it's more clearly understood as a flow. That it's more like a motion picture where there's continual change happening little bits at a time that often don't become apparent until some time has passed. So the growth that we have, not only in our biological selves, but in our mental and emotional selves, happens gradually by things that influence us, by decisions we make, by patterns that we break in terms of habits and things like that. And then you look back and you can say, well, your life tends to make sense. Looking back, it makes very little sense as you're moving forward often, And that's why I think it's the idea of flow, and we tend to want to look at it as a series of snapshots.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that comes out of this for me too is the idea of grace. That there are these seeds flowing forth as you're talking about, and so there's a concept that it's something we get. It's a second chance. We get another chance. life is full of mulligans. We get a lot of do-overs. And so this possibility is coming to us because there's always a manifestation of ideas. There are always divine ideas coming forth. And no matter what has gone beyond, something new will be coming out. Yeah.
Has anyone here ever had a problem? Yeah.
You know, this is an evolved crowd.
I know. Well, they probably did a long time ago.
Before they got here.
They had one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a problem is what? A problem is a growth opportunity looking for a better idea. And when you have the better idea, the problem tends to go away. And in fact, we probably forget most of the problems we've had that seem so important at different times in our lives, because we got a better idea. It may have been delivered by someone else. It may have been, something we realized ourselves. But once we had the better idea, the problem dissolved because we didn't need it anymore. And then a bigger problem shows up because you need a bigger problem as you evolve into greater awareness. It takes bigger problems for you to evolve further. Stepping into a larger arena also means you're taking on bigger challenges.
It is interesting. Those big problems are the ones that launch us into our biggest growth.
Yeah.
And so
the bigger the problem, the bigger the potential for growth.
Expansion.
We don't always actualize that potential in a healthy way, but that's our opportunity. And Spirit continually delivers opportunities. Have you noticed? People say, I just want to relax and rest, and Spirit says, nope.
Sorry, got another idea.
Here's another idea. Like, how's 2020 going for you so far, right? All the goal setting you did and the visioning you did, just don't turn on the news, right? Because doesn't look like it's going to be a smooth glide path into peace. We're going to have to do some work. We're going to have to get some greater awareness. We're going to have to do some changes in our lives, So the good thing is that Ernest has provided a lot of tools for us to do that.
What is that?
Yeah.
That's interesting you would bring that about changing somebody else's life, because when you can change your own life, it almost automatically begins to change someone else's life. It's really, and that's the individualization that's going on. We're all here brought for a particular experience to take place by means of us. And as we live that experience to the fullest of our capacity, we tend to move out, and that experience radiates out and affects others. There are no boundaries. I love to do this one about years ago I read a book with Ken Wilber about no boundaries, and another one of those really dense books that you just read for over and over and over with a dictionary next to you. But the one that I took away that stuck with me is, we set up the boundaries. And I've talked about this before, but if you look right at my face right now, just look at my face for a while, if you can do that, if you can stand that. And as you're doing that, you can also see, without looking at it, just still looking at my face, you can see my shirt, you can see the screen behind me. You maybe even see Jim, if you've got wide enough perspective, and you can see the lectern over here. It's not a podium, it's a lectern. You stand in front of a lectern. All of that stuff is showing up while you're still looking at my face, because the boundaries we decide. We make up the boundaries. And those same things are happening on the metaphysical plane. So any ideas that we are, any expressions that we are, they keep emanating out from us without those boundaries, and those begin to impact other things. So it's really important for us to live our truth and live our authenticity.
Yeah, quick New Thought history story. Dr. Raymond Charles Barker, one of our great teachers, had the New York Church for about 50 years. And one Sunday, people walked in the bookstore, and there was a big table with a pile of books that said How to Change Other People. And they sold about 50 of them, and when you got outside and looked at it, it was a blank book.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Fundraiser, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
now
yeah,
you can't
yeah.
do it. But the idea was, no, you can't change. You don't do this to change other people. You make changes in yourself, and your experience of other people changes. And everyone has to make their own decisions about where they go and what they do. And so often we say, well, I can't be happy until everybody's happy. Well, good luck with that, right? Maybe if you get happy, other people will be influenced to be happy by being around you.
Right.
It's like throwing a pebble into the ocean, and it just expands and expands and expands, and everybody's affected.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Wherever we look, Dominic, wherever we look, We see it. We're talking about it. Dr. Holmes, he was really struggling with trying to figure out this God thing. It,
Yeah.
the thing itself, him, her. He used so many
Right.
different terms, but I love that he settled on the it term because it so encompasses everything. And so when he's saying it with a capital I, he's talking about God itself. Whenever we look at and see it at work, whether it be the intelligence in the atom or the convolutions of thought operating through the brain of a Socrates or an Einstein, wherever we look, we see it in action. And that's
Even if you're not Socrates or Einstein.
Joe the plumber, or Biff the barrister, the coffee guy,
The barista.
the coffee
I'm
guy,
just-
the barista,
You're,
the coffee dude.
you're on a roll.
I'm working it. I should probably go get. My favorite coffee story is already getting my tea, and the guy says, "What's your name?" I said, "It's Stephen with a PH." When the cup came, it was PHSTEVEN. So I knew he had reached his peak in his career. You know. But there, that was convolutions of thought working.
Yeah. I like to use Greek god names at Starbucks. You know, Zeus, Apollo. You know, why not? Why not?
That's right. That's right.
I mean, for a moment, that's an affirmation, right? When you
Yeah.
get your cup and it says Zeus on it, oh, that's me.
So I imagine there's I'm not a coffee drinker, but my cousin.
I like you anyway.
My cousin, thank you very much. My cousin he was in England. He walked into a Starbucks and ordered a Black American. Says it all. There it is. Priceless, right? Priceless, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point of this quote is to recognize, again, that there's one thing happening, that no matter where you look, you're seeing the effects of spirit. You're seeing the aspects of spirit. I am not all of spirit, but spirit is all of me. Therefore, you know, if someone says, I am God, there's truth in that. I'm not all of God, but I cannot not be part of God because there's only one infinite. And the relationship, I think we have trouble with. I know I did, coming from a Catholic background where there was a very personal definition of God and Jesus and the whole hierarchy of, Mary and who was a vice president and
the saints and the
and all
Caesar,
the
the
saints
Pope.
and
I mean, the
managing,
Pope.
the managing
yeah.
directors in heaven and all that. Was that where's that personal connection that's looking over me personally? And we describe in this teaching, in Holmes and in New Thought and in metaphysics in general, more of an impersonal force, an impersonal nature of intelligence that creates out of itself and becomes what it creates, as Thomas Troward said. So, but the point is, we are already imbued with everything we need in order to interact with the environment in which we find ourselves. So when we pray, we don't pray to God to do something different than God did yesterday. We pray to make ourselves more accepting to what has already been given. So the solutions that I need for my issues, my problems, my concerns, my challenges already exist within me, but I maybe have created some kind of a condition within myself, a mindset that doesn't let me access it, because I'm thinking in a limited way, or I'm thinking in fear-based ways, or I'm, or whatever it is. So when I can open up to that greater truth, and as Emerson said, let the divine circuits flow, then I'm able to have that greater realization. And so, again, sometimes it doesn't, Spirit leads me not to within myself, but the minister says something on stage on Sunday that just makes everything click. Or I'm reading it in a book, or one of Dr. Sue's amazing Facebook posts from Starbucks, where she encounters people and does these amazing ministerial magic stuff with them.
Yeah.
Befriend Dr. Sue if you haven't already. But just stuff. Yeah. But just because there's a lot of wisdom out there. I don't have to do it all myself. I can expose myself to people that can help me along the path. And that's why it's important to pay attention to who we're with and to really listen to what people say. Everyone's our teacher if we can only listen to the words.
Right. Yeah. That's sweet. You're good at this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an overnight sensation.
But not a one-hit wonder. and what I and this co-creative nature that we have, that is so very powerful. And sometimes, like you said, it's coming from other people, but we can ask for the willingness to be open to that.
Yeah.
And to just allow ourselves, if we run into that situation, when I know I do it all the time, when I run into a situation where I just don't know what to do, I go to that space within that does know, and I say, okay, I'm ready, and I'm open, and I'm willing, so let it be.
Yeah.
And boom, somebody comes along, and they say something that is exactly the aha that I was looking for.
Right. And it may have nothing to do with their meaning of it.
No.
You know, it could be something that you take and make your own because it fits in. It's that missing piece of the puzzle that you've been putting together, and it just fits.
You've probably had this experience where someone will come to the line afterwards and said, when you said so-and-so, it was exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, and a couple times that happened, I didn't say it.
Didn't say it. Right. It's like, no, I wrote it down. It's right here. Well, it's not right here. Yeah.
Whatever works, you know?
Yeah. That is it. We can also spark that activity that we're talking about, and this is why we talk so much about the spiritual practices. This is why we have the meditation in the service. This is why we begin with prayer. This is why we do affirmation service. This is why we have music in service. Every aspect of the service is part of the spiritual practice that you get to bring into your life on a daily basis. I listen to gospel music, hardcore Christian fundamentalist gospel music, because I know that when they're praying and praising the Lord, they're talking about the lawgiver, and we have the law that we practice. So I can praise the law, which I'm very happy that the law doesn't change its mind about the way it's going to work, you know, that electricity will toast my toast, make my microwave work, and if I walk away from the oven long enough, it will burn it, you know. So I get that. I'm grateful for that kind of stuff. So when I hear these things in those songs, then I get those inspirations, you know. When I sit in the silence that we talk about in affirmation and go into the gap and get into that God awareness place, something arises within me that settles my spirit and moves me to the next level. All the things that we do and everything you do in your life can be a spiritual practice like that. If we just become aware of it and accept it as a spiritual practice, then that co-creative nature will speak to you and lift your life in a new way. Yeah.
So the new quote's up?
It is. I think you're up.
We have to live each day as though all the joy there is in the universe were ours now. And we have to live each day as though all the joy we ever expect to experience were ours now. This is tough. You know, because life includes suffering. Life includes things that you don't want to look at or experience or feel. Some of you indicated you'd had problems, stuff like that. You know, and that's when it's more important to remember. You know, maybe, you know, it takes a minute and then you say, okay, you know, how do I want to experience this? How do I want to interpret this? What is in this that's for me? And the answer ultimately is pretty much everything, or in fact, everything is for you. You know, Dr. Gary Simmons, who's been here a few times, says, you know, what if you lived your life as though everything were for you and nothing were against you? How would that change, that perspective change? How would that change your experience of having this negativity and saying, okay, how is this for me? And maybe you won't be able to figure out how it's for you at that moment, but you start on a train of thought toward possibility rather than toward getting stuck and limited and making it smaller. Fear makes us contract. You know, love makes us expand. Love makes us expand, which requires some degree of vulnerability, because when you expand, you open yourself up to what is in the world around you. And sometimes we just want to run and hide from what's in the world around us. Sometimes we don't want to confront or deal with what's really there. You know, sometimes the people that count the money in churches, it's kind of a common experience. When you count the money, you know, less so today because fewer people are giving in cash. But back when I started, that was the main way that people gave. And in Fort Lauderdale, we had about 1,000 people, and we had 7 people that counted the money in this room after the service. And everybody hated to count the ones. Not just because there were more of them, because they were tended to be wadded up into balls.
Crumpled up.
And they were kind of moist.
Because you're holding on to it. I'm not going to give this up.
Because in the time that we said we're going to take the offering and did the prayer, some people were holding on to that money out of a sense of limitation and fear. You know, the 20s, the 50s, the 100s were all nice and neat, sometimes even in envelopes. But the ones tend to be a pile of ones, you know, from a lot of people. And there'd be a big pile, and they were just, do those last. And I think that expressed something. And the minister, my teacher, Bill Tolliver, would do a talk once a year, call it the $1 talk. And here's what he said. He said, if $1 is all you can give, we're so grateful that you're willing to give it. He said, but if you're giving $1 because that's the value you're receiving here, please love yourself enough to go somewhere else. You know, that's a message, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, but think about that. How much are you experience the loving yourself, being in joy, creating the possibilities, even in those areas of life where you currently feel restricted? And maybe that sense of self-love and joy is a path to a greater experience. Or even if the experience stays the same, it becomes a better experience for you. What if you could give that $1 lovingly, joyfully, as though it were 100?
It certainly would change the now moment, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. This has been fun. Please come back.
Love to.
Right?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Take the prayer now.
We're going to do an affirmation, and then we'll do the prayer.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. There's more. There's more. First we do the affirmation, and then there will be more, Jim. Hold on. All right. Let's do it together. I readily step into the creative act, moment after moment,
for there is only God and what God does, which is to create,
and that is what I do as a co-creator. Take it away.
All right. So a prayer treatment. And I would reiterate that if you haven't taken classes on how we do prayer or prayer treatment or spiritual mind treatment, as we call it, avail yourself of that opportunity, because it is a different practice than traditional prayer. And what we do in that prayer is we move into a space of changing our mind about some issue or some aspect or something about ourselves to a more expansive idea than we currently hold. Because we know that as we accept that idea, it becomes part of our belief system through our affirmations, it expands our capacity for good. So this prayer is about healing, and healing has to do with moving through any kind of a difficulty to a greater truth. Healing is a return to truth. The truth of your being is that you're healthy, whole, and complete. The truth of your finances is that you are wealthy beyond imagining. The truth of your being nature is that you are a precious cosmic self who has come here to shine their light for all of humanity and all of creation. So let's know together, right here and right now, that there is one mind, one heart, one spirit, one creative intelligence, and that intelligence is available to us right here and right now in all ways. It is never limited. It is never restricted. It is always flowing and flowing and giving and giving. And we are the recipients of this flowing, of this giving, of this intelligence, of this love. And we are of its nature. Therefore, it is like us and we are like it. So I know in my own mind that I am one with Spirit right here and right now. There is nothing to separate me from my essential spiritual nature. I will never be more spiritual than I am right now, for I am fully spiritual. And I know that there is healing in my life and in your life and in the lives of everyone that you hold dear. that by setting the intention to know this truth for ourselves and for others, we make it happen. We make it so. By creating the energy, the vibration that is consistent with a healing energy. By seeing the highest and best and turning away from conditions that look limited. We don't refuse to see them, but we refuse to dwell on them. So I see the illness healed. I see the poverty replaced with wealth. I see the limitation replaced with the realization of choice. I see the relationships connected at a loving, compassionate, beautiful experience. Let us claim this truth for ourselves, and let us do it with the enthusiasm of high expectation. Let us have the same faith in the realization of this prayer treatment and our own prayer treatments that we have when we flip on a light switch. If the light doesn't come on, we're surprised. If the treatment doesn't manifest, let's be surprised. Let's own this truth for ourselves because it is something we have always had, and perhaps we are only just now awakening to. So with deep gratitude for the realization of this truth, for this amazing philosophy, the science of mind that we have in our lives, the gratitude that we have for our intention to move forward in a positive, uplifting, joyous, and loving way, we give thanks for all of this. And we release this word now into that creative field that we call mind, knowing it is done unto us as we believe, and together we say, and so it is. Thank you so much.